welcome to Combat Spuds, the weekly combat sports roundup brought to you by the Midweek Mashed Tattie Sportscast. My name is Ghost Mick, and as always I'm joined by Harvey and Paul. How's it going, lads?
And Abby Dozy.
Also the same.
Alrighty, well, shall we just get right in about it?
Aye.
Come on then.
Let's get it on. So this week we are going to dive straight into the recaps. So boxing first, I think. Did we all watch the Canelo Alvarez versus Dimitri Bivol fight?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, indeed.
So, spoiler alert, for the first time since, I want to say 2013 or something like that, when he fought Mayweather, Canelo Alvarez lost a professional boxing match.
Yes.
Wah, wah,
Do not
wah.
adjust your earphones. What you've heard is true.
What did you think, lads? What did you think of the fight? Sum it up in a couple of sentences.
It was probably one of the worst Canelo fights I've ever seen. Actually, it probably is the worst. It's the worst I've seen him perform. I think Canelo landed like 83 punches. Something along the lines, so.
Is that you putting that down as a lack of output for Canelo? Was he not active enough?
I think he's just. I just don't think he's supposed to be at this weight.
Okay.
I think that would be
slowed him. I think it slowed him down a bit, to be honest, because I was watching before the fight. Somebody posted and was like, "Look at the speed of Canelo's hands," and I was like, "That's not the speed of Canelo's hands that I'm used to seeing. Look rather sluggish." So I don't know maybe if it's something that's happened during the fight camp, or he wasn't feeling well, or if that was just from moving up in weight. I just don't know. I mean, obviously, Dimitri, the Russian, he this is his weight. He's a lot bigger than him. Just he's used to it. I don't know. It's just. I think maybe it was too quick for him to fight the champion at this weight. I think maybe he should have took a few fights from lower ranked opponents first before he took on Dimitri, who's, what was he, 19-0 before the fight?
And a world champion. Boxer,
Aye,
obviously.
world champion, like, you know what I mean? Aye.
I think that was the clearest thing you could tell, was one boxer was clearly in his comfortable zone and one wasn't. Really, I don't think I ever remember a stage where Dimitri Bivol looked in trouble, really, as much.
No.
But it was very. He had a plan. He stuck to it. He implemented it over the whole fight, and it was. I think it was a pretty obvious win. In the end, for me, like, I mean,
I think Dimitri's 4 inches taller than Canelo as well, like 4 inches.
I'll just tell you.
But 4 inches. I think he has like 2 inches in reach or whatever as well.
6 foot with 72-inch reach.
Aye.
For Bivol versus 5'8" with 70.5-inch reach for Alvarez. So how I would sum it up is, now at the risk of getting close to political borders and comparing a Russian to a pair of Ukrainian brothers, Bivol for me fought very much like a miniature Klitschko. He did the basics very, very well. He used his height and reach very well. He kept a tight guard the whole time. He moved in whatever direction he needed to move in without using too much energy, overexerting himself, overstretching. Fought behind a jab very well, used straight punches. There was only a couple of times he let some hooks and stuff go, like when Canelo was backed against the ropes trying to rope-a-dope him. It seemed to me like, for whatever reason, whether there was something going on with Canelo or whether it was just the stylistic matchup, it was the game plan they came up with, it seemed like Canelo was trying to draw a fight out of Bivol. He wanted him to attack and get aggressive and get loose and then counter, because Canelo's obviously one of the very best counter punchers in the world. He's fantastic in terms of movement, head movement, footwork, and he's ridiculously good at counter punching. So fast, he can read what his opponent's doing. But Bivol was giving him nothing. He was robotic, but in a good way, if that makes sense. Like, it wasn't robotic, like you know, slow and rusty. Like, it was robotic in that, like, he did not waver for his game plan and what the style that sort of suited him. I think there was a few moments in there where it was like Alvarez with a bit more time at that weight, with maybe a slightly sort of heavier workload, like a more aggressive game plan. I think there was holes in there that he could pick Bivol apart. It seemed there was a stretch for maybe, let's say, rounds 4 to 6. I want to say round 7 Bivol kind of took control a bit more again. So it was a runabout there. There was like 3 or 4 round stretch where Alvarez was kind of picking him apart. Like, he was increasing the pressure and the workload bit by bit, round by round, and landing good shots. But Bivol never stopped doing what he was doing. And eventually it was like Alvarez, he couldn't keep that pace going, and he started to slow down again and kind of fall back into the trap, and Bivol took control again. It was interesting, if nothing else, to see Alvarez with that kind of, in that kind of position. You know what I mean? Like, he hasn't lost since Mayweather. You know what I mean? Like, his only losses have been in title fights to the very best in the world, sort of thing. So it looked to me for most of the fight like Alvarez was the more skilled boxer, but he was out of his depth for one reason or another, I should say. And Bivol just did what he had to do. It was weird watching it. It didn't feel like an Alvarez fight. It didn't feel like a Canelo fight. It was strange.
No, it didn't. It was just weird to watch.
Do you think that's the experiment done? That's the light heavyweight experiment done, or do you think he's going to keep it this?
Canelo's got, I mean, it's a weird one. Generally speaking, it's just the champion that has this, but Canelo had a rematch clause, and immediately after the fight in the interviews, he said he was keen for the rematch. He wants to go again, so potentially we could see them run it back straight away. I think the ball will be in the. Was it the WBA that was sanctioning it?
I think you're right there.
The ball will be in their court.
Can I tell you?
I'm pretty sure it was It was either WBA or WBC. I think it was WBA. The ball will be in their court. Whether or not they let them go straight away, or whether or not they try and intervene and say that Bivol has to take on another challenger first. But if it's written in the contracts, then there's probably not much they could do to stop it if that's the fight that the promoters want to go for. It would probably be big money, because Bivol's stock just went up. You know what I mean? Unquestionably. He, like, even though Canelo was moving up in weight, he was the betting favourite going into that fight. So, like, Triple G's, he has to wait on the side now. Like, the money fights, Canelo and Bivol, like Canelo and Triple G. I mean, maybe it evens the odds a bit there. Maybe Triple G's got more of a chance with the bookmakers, with Canelo coming off a loss. But it'd be a weird one to come off of that and then go and defend a title in another weight class. But at the same time, if he loses twice, then it gets even weirder and harder to market and stuff. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how the chips fall over the next few weeks. Moving on to MMA, I don't suppose you've watched any of the PFL this past week.
I haven't,
Actually
my friend.
didn't know.
No, I
Okay.
haven't at all.
So I'll quickly give you the cliff notes. It was PFL 3 for the 2022 season, so the third card in the regular season for 2022. It saw the return of some of their biggest names under contract. So we had Rory McDonald fighting, we had Anthony Pettis fighting, we had Ray Cooper the third fighting, and we had Kayla Harrison fighting in the main event. There was some fun fights on the card. For what it's worth for UK listeners, you can watch the full card on Channel 4 Sport on YouTube. So it seems to be the way that Channel 4 are doing it at the moment. Whether it stays this way or not, I don't know, but what they're doing is they're showing the full thing on YouTube, but then they're also showing the main card live on Channel 4 at stupid o'clock in the morning.
Right.
They're supposed to, as mentioned with the press release 10 weeks ago when we spoke about this, they're supposed to be doing supplementary programming, etc. I don't know when that sort of stuff's going to kick in, but it's cool that it's so much easier to watch now than it used to be. So anyway, back to the cliff notes. Rory McDonald picking up an impressive win. He took, so obviously, I mean, I'll kind of reiterate, PFL is sort of put together like an American sort of sports league style thing. They run with a league table. There's 2 regular fights. You get points based on those fights. If you win the fight, you get 3 points, and then you get bonus points for what round you win. So if you win by stoppage in round 1, you get an additional 3 points. Round 2 it's 2, round 3 it's 1, and then if it's you just win by decision, then it's just the 3 points for the win you get.
Yeah.
So Rory McDonald with the first round stoppage, rear naked choke win, gets 6 points. So he's most likely going to be through at the playoffs unless he loses his next fight, and then it might get interesting depending how the rest of the fights play out. But most likely that win gives him it takes the pressure off for his next fight.
Nice cushion.
Anthony Pettis with a mounted triangle choke in the first round also gets 6 points. So that's lightweight division for Anthony Pettis and welterweight for Rory McDonald. Then back in the welterweight division, Ray Cooper the third was the big scalp. So he is outside of the big names that have came in for elsewhere. Ray Cooper the third for the men's side is the homemade star. He's the 2-time welterweight champion. Or welterweight winner, I don't know what you would call it, welterweight champion, I think. Welterweight tournament champion. There you go.
Well,
he missed weight. Now we'll come back to dodgy weight misses later in the show, but he missed weight by about 5 pounds or something for this fight. I don't know what the story was, but bad weight miss, which meant that although the fight went ahead, he wasn't eligible to get any points regardless of how this went.
oh shit. So does the points then go to your opponent?
No,
Right.
if Ray Cooper had won, then nobody would have got points in that fight.
So what's the point in fighting then?
Well, because his opponent can still get points.
Oh, well, aye, his opponent can still get points. Aye, sorry. Aye.
If there's no points, what's the point? What? It makes no sense.
So if the two of them missed weight, none of them would get points. So then,
If the two of them miss weight, they'd probably scrap it or reschedule it. Or so, I don't know.
Aye.
I'm not quite sure actually. I don't know if there's precedent for that or not. But anyway, nonetheless, Carlos Lille picked up the unanimous decision there. Ray Cooper the third didn't look in shape, to be honest. So I think there's a wee bit more than just missing weight. I don't think he's came in shape. Well, that's been an injury or what, I don't know. But that's 3 points for Carlos Lille. So it's kind of the best of a bad situation, I suppose. And then the main event was Kayla Harrison versus Marina Moktinica or something along the lines. The commentators made it sound really easy to say that name, and I just can't get my head around it at all. Kayla Harrison's been kind of harsh on herself, and she's had a wee bit of criticism, but not too much, for her performance. It was by all means a dominant decision win for her, but she's been so dominant in the past. Anytime she doesn't get a first round submission win or TKO win, then eyebrows are raised, kind of thing. And she's known to be very harsh on herself, so she's not particularly enamoured with her performance here. It was a wee bit like she got stuck in fourth gear. Like, she was running over the top of Marina, but she couldn't quite find that fifth gear to get the stoppage. Could be the time between fights, because she didn't have any off-season activity because she was caught in the different organisations with her contract being up with the PFL.
Oh, that's right. Aye.
So possibly it's just that she's not fought in however many months it's been. Maybe it was just an off night. Maybe Marina was just that good and she couldn't get the job done. I don't know. It wasn't the most entertaining fight. It was a lot of wrestling, but I did rather enjoy the Rory McDonald fight against Brett Cooper and the Anthony Pettis fight against Miles Price. They were fun, and there was a couple of good cards in the. A couple of good fights on the undercard. Right, we shall move on. Bellator. Did we catch any of Bellator from Saturday night? No, Friday night.
I did,
Friday
aye.
night, sorry.
Sure,
some
I got
of
a wee bit of it, aye.
Paul,
I know you
yourself?
two guys watched it. Unfortunately, I did not catch Bellator, lads. No, so I will open up the floor to you guys for this to let everybody know.
All right. What did you see, Harvey?
I can't mind.
Good
If you
chat.
say some names, I'll maybe mind.
Did you see it? Aye,
That was
what did
me
you
on
see?
Friday.
I don't know. Saw something though.
What did you think of
they were
Bellator at the weekend? It happened.
Bellator too.
Boys with taps off and gloves on.
I mean, I was watching because I was messaging you, so
I remember in the
Right.
group chat
So-
you guys were talking about it.
Again, let's do cliff notes, right? Undercard, pretty solid. Nothing that's like, immediate must see this kind of thing. A couple of stoppages in the early hours of the card and stuff, but the big news was on the main card. We had Lorenz Larkin picking up a win over Kel Stewart and looking pretty damn good. Lorenz Larkin's a guy that had a lot of promise early in his career. Around was he a UFC guy? Let me ask that on it. Hold on. I feel like he was at one
Lorenz
point, but I don't
Larkin.
know. Maybe I'm making that up.
I think he was. He competed in the UFC, Strike Force and UFC.
Strike Force, that's what I was thinking of. Right, I was thinking of him back in the day. So, Strike Force 2011. That's what I was thinking of, right. So, Lorenz Larkin was originally a Strike Force guy. And he had a bit of, what's the words? Buzz. He had a bit of buzz about him. He was, he's tipped as one of the kind of up-and-comers. Then the UFC bought out Strike Force, so he was one of the guys that came over to the UFC. So he had a few fights in the UFC, had some promise, but never quite. I think he had more losses than wins in the UFC, or kind of evenish. So he didn't have a great run there. And then 2017, he's moved over to Bellator. And he's been on a run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 6 in a row in Bellator now. He's on a bit of a run. He seems to be getting better fight by fight. So that it was. Well, I know it was. Let's be honest. It was pretty easy work for him. He looked damn good against Kel Stewart, so he's one to watch. The David Garland and Benjamin Brander fight, that was pretty fun as well. That was straight off the back of that one, so they were in a good run with the main card. And then we had the co-main event, which was Yoel Romero and Alex Polizzi. Harvey, tell me about Yoel Romero in that fight. Jesus.
Yoel Romero is just Yoel Romero of old.
How is that a human? Explain that.
I know. It's weird, isn't it? He's what, 40 something, and
He's like 45,
a
I think.
machine, man.
When he was doing his walkout, he was getting ready to get in the cage. Cherie was like watching something on the iPad or something like that. She wasn't paying attention. I gave her a nudge. I was like, Cherie, look. She was like, oh, aye, he's built like a tank, isn't he? And I was like, aye, he's 45. She's going, what? I was like, yep.
Aye. Aye. He basically toyed with
Yes.
what's his name there?
Polizzi.
I believe.
Aye, Paul.
How many times in that fight I was like,
I would highly recommend you
will.
watch that fight.
I feel like this is something I'm going to need to have a wee look at. I do like Yoel Romero as well.
It was almost like he could have won whenever he wanted to, wasn't it?
Aye. Like, he would punch him, sit him on his arse, and he would just stand there with his horn in the air. Like, come on. Just please, just smash him. Just hit him again, put him at his misery. Like,
do you know what it made me thinking? It was like a bloody what do you call them guys? Do you know the dudes with the red capes, with the bulls, the bullfighters are over there?
Matador.
That's what it was, like, bloody Matador, man. It was like he was doing the ollie. Smash him and drop him and then just stand there like ollie.
I've just looked this up, lads. That is incredible. He's dropped him and then waved. And then dropped him again and then waved.
It's ridiculous, man. So
that is
the weirdest part of the fight though was the ending.
That
he smashes it.
So
it's like, go ahead.
Right.
You
basically, through the fight, it was almost like he could stop it whenever he chose to. But especially in that third round, he was like turning the dial up just that wee bit, and it seemed like at any moment he was just going to step in the accelerator and smash him and finish it. About halfway through the third round, he did, but then he pulled back for some reason. He stopped his attack, and he let Polizzi get back in the fight a wee bit. Then, at the last second of the fight, he exploded and ran over the top of him. It was like a 1-2, 1-2. It was like straight punches, bang, bang, bang. Floored him. Polizzi was trying to get back up, and he's still going after him. The referees jumped in and waved off the fight about a second and a half after the bell went.
Aye.
It was a bit confusing, to say the least, watching it.
In real time, I was like, what? Because Yoel like smashes him with that right hand when he's kind of doing it, and the ref's like, oh no,
that's enough.
Jumps in, but like the bell rings, and I'm like, ref, is the bell wrong? And then the ref's like, waving it off.
I think
like,
that the referee didn't hear the bell because it was that noisy. I think that is what happened, but I'm not entirely sure. So the ref stopped the fight. It's then announced that the referee has called a halt to the action. 4 minutes and 59 seconds of the third round. We're like, no.
No, he didn't.
The fight was by. He's called a halt to the action at like 5 minutes and like 1 or 2 seconds of the third round. I don't know if it's like a default thing, like they've decided. But then, see, I have seen fights that are listed as stopped like 5 minutes of the third round, like so that, you know what I mean? Like it's the full time, but it's here, so God knows. Maybe the timer on the telly was a bit wrong, but I'm sure I heard the bell going before the ref got in there.
Oh, I definitely heard the bell.
So I don't know, but nevertheless, it was hella fun. And Yoel Romero, man, like you just seen it, Paul.
The punch while poor Polizzi is trying to get back to his feet on the 459. Get out of my way! Just absolutely. There's not any technique. That is just muscle that's hitting him there.
It's like I tell you to stay down.
Stay down, boy.
Stay down, boy.
Aye, ridiculous, man. I highly recommend anybody goes and watches that fight, or everybody goes and watches that fight. Aye, brilliant, man. Yoel Romero, like, he needs to be cherished. He's absolutely one of a kind.
Aye,
like he's not even like a once in a generation type. Like, he's a once in a lifetime man. He's just different. He's built different. He talks different. He looks different. He fights different. He's
the man's a super. He is a superhero.
Ridiculous,
he's a living superhero.
So we went for that. Should have mentioned actually this. So this was the first major MMA organisation to hold an event in France. So MMA was legalised last year in France, finally. So this card went down in Paris. So the main event then was Ryan Bader defending his heavyweight title against Czech Congo, a French native. The audience were a bit funny in this one, I thought. They didn't seem to be that behind Congo.
No, that I messaged in the group. I was like, mate, they're supposed to be behind this like French guy. You know what I mean? Czech Congo. He's French. Obviously, I know he's French. I was like, we're in Paris. Like, they should be cheering for him. So when he was doing his walkout, there was like hardly any cheers or anything. I was like, okay. But then when Bader came out, they were booing him. I was like, what? I was like, French, man, they're weird. They don't celebrate much. They just like to complain, don't they? That's just in their nature.
Aye, they'll get
I don't know.
they'll get the high vis jackets on and get angry about stuff, but no, they're no cheer. I remember when I watched Scotland versus France at rugby, and France won, and as I was coming out, we seemed to get in with the French people, and I'm going, oh, hey, well done, good game, and the French person went, it was not very satisfactory. The team had just won. It's like, what? Shut up, man. It was not satisfactory. I don't know why it sounds Russian like, but the point I'm trying to make is that they take a lot to please. It would seem French.
They're a weird bunch.
Aye.
Actually, side note before we go further on that, David Garland, when he won, he had he's a French fella himself. He had the crowd doing PSG chants. So it was quite funny in his post-fight interview.
Imagine going to the first ever MMA card in France, and you get this picture as a main event.
This picture. I mean, that also could play into it, is that Czech Congo is literally closer to 50 than he is 40. I mean, that's 46-year-old Czech Congo, like.
Actually, good point bringing that up. So there was a stat they were flying about going into this fight that if Czech Congo won, he would be the oldest person, the oldest first-time winner of a world title in professional mixed martial arts.
Beating Glover's
That's
record.
why I want him to win. But.
So, who? What?
Is it Glover Teixeira that holds that record now, isn't it?
Could be.
In UFC. I mean, he's what, 40? 40?
He's 40 something, okay?
I don't know. Could well be. Something's telling me it's no, though. Anyway, doesn't matter. Point being, he's a bit old in terms of professional sports, anyway.
42.
42.
Sorry.
Goes that Glover Teixeira?
Dragon.
Aye, Glover Teixeira.
Just to drag you back into the weeds. The Czech Congo come out to the tune for still game, by the way. I kind of want to see that for an old fighter, just to come out to the theme tune for still game. That
we are collaging him for his young keys old. How amazing
I just sat and smiling. I got it was horrendous. Sorry.
Right, back in the fight.
Aye, back to the fight.
So something that I was saying to this to Harvey, actually, Czech Congo, as much as he is originally a kickboxer, and he was a bloody good kickboxer back in the day, he, over the last few years, has fought more and more like a wrestler. He's developed this ground and pound style where he just wants to take you down and then just sit in a safe position, either in guard or half guard, and swing the odd punch and elbow and kind of grind a victory out. It's kind of strange, but I mean, he's won plenty of fights, so I guess it's worked for him. Ryan Bader has, in his time in Bellator, been on a bit of a tear in terms of getting knockouts and TKOs, but he has a history of he's one of the very best MMA wrestlers. A very good amateur wrestler, crossed over very, very well into MMA. Was never a world beater, never like world champion, Olympic champion, anything like that in amateur wrestling. But it is sort of particular style is crossed over very, very well into MMA. So throughout his tenure with the UFC and stuff, he was very much a wrestler in terms of MMA. Like he would grind out victories akin to what I've described with Czech Congo. So it's no what you're used to with seeing Bader and Bellator going for this sort of thing. But for whatever the reason, in this fight, he basically focused on takedowns and positions and ground and pound when he could. And it was just a sort of 5-round grinding. I don't know, I'm lost for words on it. It wasn't particularly fun to watch. It was.
I would call it a good old wrestle fuck.
Aye. That's what it was. But it was a wrestle fuck victory. There was a lot of high level skill on show, but it's not the high level skill that your average fan appreciates. So it didn't go over particularly well.
Aye.
As you may expect. So I don't necessarily recommend rushing out to watch this fight. But it's interesting to see Bader defend his title. And it's interesting to kind of see how that goes over with the French the French fans. Because they didn't seem that enamoured with Congo anyway. So it was a bit so I don't know. I'm a wee bit lost, but like the couple of fights leading into it were so bloody good that it was just
it was a bit letdown on it.
It just kind of deflated the old balloon. Nah. So moving on, let's get a bit more energy about us. UFC 274. Now this one was riddled with controversy.
Paul re-enters it.
Oh, hot.
So we've all seen most of the important bits here, haven't we? Am I right in saying? Where do we even start with this, young boys?
I'll tell you what, I have a burning desire.
All right.
Was that title match the worst you have ever seen? By that, I'm not even mentioning its name. It doesn't deserve mention.
So the co-main event of the evening.
Yes. Thug Rose in probably the sleepiest match I've ever seen in my life in MMA or fight, whatever you want to call it. Is that the worst you've ever seen, lads?
Title fight?
Yeah, or fight in general. Fight in general. 25 minutes of snooze.
Certainly up there.
For me.
It was wasn't the greatest, let's be honest.
I've never seen anything like it.
No.
In fact, I'll tell you, I've seen one thing like it. SpongeBob SquarePants, where Patrick and SpongeBob have a fight, but they don't touch one another. But that only lasted for 20 seconds and it was funny. This stopped getting funny.
I don't think that's what it was for me.
I mean, I've got... Here's something that's great. Well, actually, see if I was a judge in that fight, I would refuse to hand in the scorecard.
I feel sorry for the judges. For the first time ever, I feel sorry for judges.
I was say, oh, Dana, come here. Tell them to get. None of them deserves that title. Take that for them.
Strip it. That's it. Send them out the door. The cheek of the two women to have their arms up at the end of that fight. Yes.
I mean, when Rose was like, when she was upset when she lost, I was like, come on, Hen, you can't be upset. Here's something crazy. There was 68 combined strikes in 25 minutes in that fight.
I mean, that's just...
In three and whatever minutes that Charles Oliveira and them were fighting, there was 54. So...
Says it all. Awful.
It was terrible, man. It was I don't know.
What was the numbers there, Harvey, with these strikes?
I think there was but 68 for
Was that landed or thrown?
Oh God. It landed 68 landed combined strikes, and between Oliveira and Justin Gaethje was 54 landed.
So
in 3 and whatever minutes.
There was a fight back at UFC 226 between Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou. This is the only fight that in my mind comes to mind that's kind of comparable to this, but this was a 5-round title fight, which makes things so much worse. The Ngannou and Derek Lewis fight, I'll not go into the whole story there as to why it was such a shit show, but the headline for it was that there was a total of 31 landed strikes in that 3-round fight. That's probably on course to be pretty similar with this fight if there was another 2 rounds it. I'd say that fight, the Ngannou and Derek Lewis, was a bigger disappointment, but I was at least kind of somewhat on the edge of my seat watching that because it only takes one punch for them. So it was like just waiting for that big moment, and then it never comes.
Waiting for one of them.
But with this fight, being a title fight, being that it's a rematch, I just expected so much more for Carla Esparza and Rose Namajunas. Like, it almost feels like there shouldn't be a champion after that fight. Like, Esparza cannot walk around proud with that belt on her shoulder or waist.
No.
How can you look back in that fight and be proud? You know what I mean?
I think as a professional, once they take a few days, they're both going to realise that they well and truly shit the bed spectacularly.
I have here quotes from Rose, right? Quotes from Rose Namajunas at the press conference after this. I won that fight. I stuck to the strategy. I felt as if I landed more shots. I even took her down. None of her takedowns were significant or any control time. She hit me with, I'd say, one good punch, and maybe another time her forearm clashed into my nose at some point when we were both standing up. But other than that, maybe a couple low kicks, but I didn't feel them or anything. I felt like I did the damage. I controlled the fight, and I'm proud of myself because I stuck to the strategy. Because I know that in all of Carla's fights, she baits people in and tries to get people to attack her. So it's like, no, I've been in Slugfest before, I've gotten my nose broke, I've stood there and shed blood in the octagon, so I stuck to the strategy and she didn't really have any offense. She was whiffing at air the whole time, so I thought I won. I'm really still trying to process this because I'm not trying to be salty or anything. I feel like there's something to be learned from each loss. I feel like there were moments where I wanted to capitalise a little bit more, be a little more offensive, but then every time I would step, my foot would slip, so I had to be a little more safe. That's a decision I made in the moment, but like I said, I'm an exciting fighter, I'm a finisher, I've got one of the highest finishing rates, so I don't think that I was getting the boos. I'm pretty sure that was Carla. Obviously, I want to have exciting fights, so that does kind of sting a little bit too. Is that no the comments of somebody that has got no idea what's just transpired?
Aye,
she's in a bubble there, isn't she?
I thought that way. When every time her corner men spoke to her, I thought, what fight are you guys watching? Like, it's just pure and utter denial of the facts presented in front of them.
Aye.
She was doing nothing as a champion. She was doing nothing.
She's looking for a reward for sticking to her game plan. Like,
it was a terrible game plan. It was. I mean, it was.
See, she's right in sort of thinking that Esparza didn't do enough to win, and that I
agree with that.
When you're the challenger, you have to take the fight to the champion, and you have to really earn that victory. It's a wee bit more than just winning a normal fight. You have to beat the champion to be the champion. But at the same time, Rose didn't really do enough to win either. Nobody won that.
Who does she think she is? Vladimir Klitschko?
I mean, I think...
You know what I mean? She needs to beat me. What? Because she's no knocked you out? Oh, give me peace. No having it, sorry.
I mean... no, me neither. I think maybe why they gave it to Esparza, I think she took her down a couple more times than... I mean, Rose had one takedown. I mean, I don't know, man. The
evidence and the body of work, the stats for trying to come up with who won what round and stuff is very thin. Very thin.
Aye.
Neither one of them was looking to engage. It was...
Nope.
It was like two counter strikers. Obviously, that's not quite what the situation was, but it's akin to like two counter strikers both refusing to attack because they want to counter. And so it's just a stalemate of shuffle forward, shuffle back, shuffle left, shuffle right. Like, feint a punch, feint a kick, feint a punch, like, just nothing happening. Dancing around about one another, waiting for the other person to do something. Frozen by the fact that they feel the need to go second, and the other person also feels the need to go second, and nobody wants to go first. the frustrating thing here for me, the biggest frustrating thing with it, is that Rose is really, really talented and is much, much better striker than Carla Esparza and has showed the absolute heart of a champion previously. They're now both 2-time champions. And it felt like Rose should have known better and she should have had more fight in her, more desire to win. Even like she's really good off her back, like she's got really good grappling, good jiu-jitsu. So it just seems like she should have known at some point in that fight that she had to attack, and that if Carla took her down and put her on her back, she had the ability to either get up or to chase submissions off her back. Carla Esparza, although she does have a few stoppages, generally speaking, if she stops a fight, it's submission. And it's like wearing the opponent down and then catching a submission. She's no somebody that's like a crazy explosive striker or gonna like just dive on you and instantly get a choke or something like that. That's just no her style. And she doesn't, although she has ground and pound, she's no known for brutal ground and pound either. So there was very little danger other than takedowns in that fight for Rose Namajunas, in my opinion. Maybe that's selling Carla Esparza a wee bit short, but I mean, after viewing the fight, it didn't seem like Esparza was a particularly dangerous opponent because she did nothing. As Conor McGregor once said, she did nothing. Or well, to paraphrase Conor, I should say. Nothing. Right, anyway.
No, I mean, Rose didn't do nothing
I know.
either. But, so.
I know. It's just, shit show is the only fitting phrase for it. Let's move on.
Let's talk about fun stuff.
We're taking up far too much time on stuff that's just no fun to talk about. So, highlights from the undercard. Lupe Gudenez picking up a very dominant unanimous decision over Ariane Carnelossi, something along those lines. Francisco Trinaldo at like 40, still picking up big wins, looking really good against Danny Roberts, getting a unanimous decision there.
Great fight.
Blagoy Ivanov and Marcos Rodrigo de Lima for being aesthetically out of shape heavyweights that actually managed to go 3 rounds and be active the full time. So I mean, not so much a like great fight or anything, but like, it was no bad, and it was just like kind of well done lads for getting to the end before you kill her, because at the end they were absolutely bust, but they made it there. The Brandon Royval and Matt Schnell fight was an interesting one. Matt Schnell had went for a guillotine choke, just to give the cliff notes of the fight. He'd went for a guillotine choke and Royval escaped, and then Schnell immediately sat up and stuck his head out as if he was like, right, your turn, mate. And Royval grabbed him and instantly choked him out with a guillotine choke. it was just strange, man. The Macy Chiasson and Norma Dumont fight was pretty fun. Unanimous, split decision for Macy in that one. Capping off the undercard, Andre Fiallo and Cameron Van Kamp. That was a good fight. Fiallo looked good. He stepped up a level in that fight. That was a big KO for him. Right, main card other than the co-main event. Randy Brown, Chaos Williams, really good entertaining fight. Split decision for Randy Brown. Oven St. Preux, Shogun Rua, no that much happening. It was quite a slow fight. Slightly disappointing. Mauricio Shogun Rua is on his sort of farewell tour. He spoke openly that he plans on having 2 fights this year, and then that's him done. He's retiring. This was one, so he's got another fight this year, as far as he's planning, and that'll be him retired. So it would have been nice to see him get a big win, but Oven St. Preux is no joke. So the fact that he made it to the end of the fight without getting smashed or submitted is a good effort. And that was a rematch in their first fight. St. Preux beat him. He beat Shogun Rua in like under a minute. So it's an improvement if nothing else. Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson. Holy shit balls, Batman. That was fireworks.
Street Fighter.
Tony Ferguson nearly had him in that first round. He had him in big trouble. And then Michael Chandler comes out in that second round like a bloody punter for the NFL. He kicked the chin clean off of Ferguson, man.
Oh, he switched them off. It was actually quite scary. Like,
The way Ferguson
he felt like a corpse, man.
He was unconscious for the guts of a minute, if not over a minute. He was out. Aye, that's worth checking out, man.
Absolutely.
You seen the old somebody's put I don't know, just when it happens, you know, the old Windows shutdown tune. Somebody put that on it when you get kicked.
I mean, it's pretty accurate. Like, he forced the shutdown on him.
Man.
The apps are still open. Who gives a fuck? Off.
And then the main event, Charles Oliveira, Justin Gaethje. Just quickly for the backstory. So there was a bit of controversy around about the UFC scales. So not the official weigh-in scales from the commission, the scales that the UFC have in the hotel backstage, so the fighters can check their weight in the lead up to the weigh-in. So the day before, or well, throughout the fight week really, and then primarily like day before and morning of the weigh-ins, they use scales that are supposed to be as close as damn it in terms of calibration to the commission scales. But allegedly they were off by more than half a pound. I've heard talk as they were off as much as 0.8 of a pound. So fighters were weighing less than what they actually were when they were checking their weight in these scales. So supposedly this caught out a few of them, but it came out early in the morning of the weigh-ins that this issue was there, and almost everybody that had the issue was able to lose the additional weight that they needed to lose. The exceptions were Norma Dumont and Charles Oliveira. The two of them were unable to make weight. So without going too deep into sort of the conspiracies and whether or no Oliveira could have made the weight, ultimately he weighed half a pound over the limit, and he was given an additional hour to cut that half a pound and couldn't do it. He came back at the same weight. Even though this is the if you want to dig into conspiracies here, he weighed in with his underwear on, half a pound over, went away to cut additional weight, came back, weighed in the buff, and yet was the same weight.
Aye.
How that makes any sense, I do not know. But nevertheless, this meant that he was stripped of the title. So although he was still in the title fight, he was not eligible to retain the title. So only Justin Gaethje could come away a champion from this fight. And he nearly did. He had Oliveira downed twice and had him in a lot of trouble. But Charles Oliveira 2.0 or 3.0 or whatever 0.0 we're on, he is just on another level right now. He's on a crazy run of fights. He's just slick. That is the only word for it.
He's unbelievable, man.
I mean, at one point, I think it kind of looked like, you know, Oliveira obviously get hurt, and then to me it looked like he just put himself on his back.
Aye, the second one that was kind of delayed.
Aye. It looked like it was delayed, and then he just like kind of went in his butt, kind of like I don't know. It looked like it was a conscious decision.
I wonder if he felt his balance go, like his equilibrium went, and then rather than trying to stagger about and risk getting hit, he just dropped his butt. I don't know.
Smart if that's the case.
But he seems to walk through every problem he faces. Like every fight that he's been in, his opponents caused him a problem, but he just goes through.
Aye.
I mean, Gaethje's put him in his arse twice. Poirier gave him a hell of a trouble. Chandler did as well. Like he the bloody mindedness and the heart of the champion. That guy, I love him.
Aye.
Do you know the funny thing, right?
He's
In the build up to this fight, I believe it was done as part of the countdown show. There was an interview with Gaethje where he described the champion's heart that Oliveira had, and he spoke about how in his previous however many fights it was something like three or four fights in a row, Oliveira had been clipped in the fight, knocked down, hurt, in a bad position, and then he came back more determined and turned it around and won the fight. Something about getting hit and hurt bad was like putting Oliveira into that next gear. So he spoke, Gaethje spoke about how he was going to have to like put him down proper because he knew that Oliveira could come back if he wasn't finished.
If you don't finish him, it wakes the devil.
Yeah,
like
in the fight, even though he knocked him down twice, he refused to engage with him on the ground. So he allowed him to get back up and recompose himself each time. I just thought that was like you spoke about this, like you knew this was going to be a problem. What you did?
I think in his heat though, the problem is with Oliveira is that he's so good on the ground as well.
Oh, he's
like
submission
specialist. Jiu-jitsu, like
he's got
he's
the most
33 wins.
submissions
He's
in the
got
UFC, I
21.
believe.
Aye, 33 professional fights that he's won. 33 fights that he's won, 21 have been for submissions. Like, it's crazy. So I think maybe he was wary of that. Like, I think maybe he's thinking he's not bad enough for me to get on him and ground and pound. If I go on him and then he slips, you know what I mean? Then that's it's game over.
It seemed like he was chasing a knockout. Like he wanted to knock him out defeat. He did not want to give him a chance of catching him in a submission. But ultimately, Oliveira, he's like, well, fuck you. I'm just going to put you in your arse and I'll just submit you anyway.
I'll submit you instead. I mean, Gaethje's a D1 bloody college wrestler though in his day, wasn't he? He was an All-American.
Yep.
Like, surely he's got to fancy his ability grappling, even though like you're saying jiu-jitsu wise.
Oliveira, man.
There are
Surely you've got to back
guys.
yourself if you're at the top of your game, or you want to be.
There are guys who I don't know enough about wrestling, like amateur wrestling, to dissect the styles and stuff within that, right? To me, it just looks like they're wrestling. I'm going to preface this by saying I don't understand how this makes sense, right? But once it comes into MMA, I can clearly see, I don't know if it's because of the striking and stuff's added in, but I can clearly see the different styles and how it makes sense. But then if I go and watch like Olympic wrestling or an amateur tournament, it's like there's a language, there's a something going on that I don't quite understand. It's strange how there's a disconnect there, but nonetheless, Gaethje was a very good D1 level, the first and only D1 champion in the history of whatever school it was that he went to. He was a standout wrestler. But in crossing over to MMA, he's not only found a love of striking and scrapping, he's also seemingly discovered that his style of wrestling suited a defensive style more so than an attacking style.
As opposed to attacking.
So although he can take people down, his like sort of ability to time like a double leg or a single leg and change levels and dive in, that's no his strong point. His strong point is once they're in these positions, in these scrambles, he's really strong and he can control where he is and he can come out in an advantageous position and get his strikes off. And then obviously, as I say, he's found this love of striking and he's a natural fighter.
To be fair, he's a very good striker. He's got some power, man.
Gaethje came up through the World Series of Fighting, which is the precursor to the PFL. He was a champion over there before he came to the UFC. If you go back and watch pretty much all of his fights over there, they are fun fights because he just would scrap with anybody. He didn't care. He has a chin on him that is utterly ridiculous. Like, he would completely disregard his opponent's ability to finish him, and he would just stand there and he would beat the shit out of them until they fell over. His back catalogue is phenomenal, man, and he's had some absolute crackers in the UFC. Most notably his last fight with with Michael Chandler. It was like a fight of the year candidate.
Oh, aye, it was incredible.
Actually, I think fight of the year winner actually for last year. So I kind of forget what the original point was, but basically Gaethje doesn't use his wrestling to attack. Like, he's a defensive wrestler.
Aye,
he loves to bang, and he's an underrated striker. So he is. Gaethje's got an ability to throw leg kicks in clinch positions that makes no sense. He can be in a clinch, like in a kind of tie plum or like an over under type position, and somehow still throw leg kicks. I can't process my mind the biomechanics of that. How do you turn your hips into a kick when you're like nipple distance away from somebody? Does that make sense?
Of course, because he really hurt Oliveira with one of the leg kicks as well. Because I think he tucked does he usually lead with his right, Oliveira? But he's keeping his right way. He was pretty much dragging his right leg in that first round at stages. Like,
I think he's orthodox, but it definitely does switch, Oliveira.
Aye,
pretty sure he's orthodox.
Oh, he kept his right leg his right leg way out the road, after one of the kicks.
So, long story short, Gaethje is incredibly underrated as a striker, very good fighter, tough as nails, great chin. Charles Oliveira is just on another level right now. You can't kill him, and he is gonna get you. You know what I mean? It's that old. What's that? Belly, wasn't it? Belly's gonna get you. It was an old advert.
Belly, the big Belly, the Reebok advert. Belly's gonna get you.
That's like Oliveira's gonna get you, man. Like, if you're in that cage with him for long enough, he's gonna choke you out. He's gonna catch you in an armbar. He's gonna submit you in some fashion, or he might just knock you out during the process.
He's a final boss, man. He really is a final boss.
It's such a shame that. Well, I say shame because it might be his own stupid fault. I don't know, but it's in the bigger picture. It's a shame that he wasn't presented with the title after that.
The title, I know.
You know what I mean? He's doing the right thing. He's cutting a promo, albeit in Portuguese because he's Brazilian, but he's cutting a promo saying, there's something missing here. There's something missing in this picture. There's only one champion, and his name's Charles Oliveira, the Bronx.
He dove straight out of the cage to go to talk to Dana straight after it. Didn't he? He was straight up in Dana's face.
So it is very, very likely that we will see Charles Oliveira rematch Michael Chandler later this year to crown the new champ.
Give me that, man.
Well,
however,
his promo.
Michael Chandler talking about cut promos, the man's no shy with a mic. Either one of them could also be fighting Conor McGregor next. Both of them mentioned his name. It's mad that McGregor's so far detached for being a UFC champion, yet everybody still wants to fight him because that is the money fight.
They all want that McGregor money. Yeah,
I was going to say it's not even to prove a point. That's just money.
Yeah.
It's not about who's better, right? It's just that's the mega box fight.
They want
that's the fight
money.
That's going to get you pay-per-view points. It's going to make you big dosh.
And Chandler said he wants to fight him at 170.
Aye.
Well, McGregor's been on a promo tour. Basically, he's been pushing a return at 170, and he's saying that he wants to challenge Kamaru Usman, which is good business. Terrible matchup for him, but it's good business pushing for that fight.
Jesus, because it's terrible.
Kamaru Usman doesn't have that much going on now at 170 because he's beat all the contenders basically. So, and Usman's looking for big fights. He's talking about fighting Canelo, although that chat's probably going to die down a bit now. Based on what happened there. So he's chasing big money fights. He knows he's not got many left. He's got terrible knees. This Kamaru Usman, his knees are done. I think he's done like stem cells and whatever else he's done, and they're a bit better, but he's basically a cripple when he's not in a fight. So his days are kind of numbered. So he knows what he's about, man. He wants big money fights. So to sum up, Charles Oliveira in his next fight will be fighting for the title. Who that's against at this moment in time, I don't know. And everybody in the dog still wants to fight McGregor. Right, before we very, very, very quickly look ahead to next week, do you have a highlight for us, Harvey?
Oh man, aye, I've got two.
You greedy bastard.
Well, literally, the first one is very, very quick, and that's Nico Ali Walsh.
Right. Was he
Or
fighting
Walsh
again?
Ali. Anyway, Muhammad Ali's grandson, sorry, Jesus.
Steady.
He was fighting again on the 30th of April.
Right, okay.
He won again by knockout in the first round, 2 minutes and 50 seconds in
Well played.
at the MGM Grand Arena.
Nice.
He was fighting against Alejandro Ibarra.
Don't get who that is.
Well,
The guy that got knocked out. That's who he is.
Well played.
All you need to know.
Well played to young Ali.
aye. So he's keeping up the good work from what he
I like
started.
he's been pretty active, so he's
aye.
building that record up, building his name up. So hopefully he's sort of skill set and fitness and whatever else goes with it, and probably this kind of time next year he'll be looking to have some meaningful fights. No disrespect to his opponents.
Aye, hopefully. Aye. The other one, it's more of a there's maybe a discussion than anything else here, but have you seen Anderson Silva's comments through the week there?
With
About
the
the
UFC. I read the headline and opened the article. I've yet to actually sit and read the article to see what his comments were.
He says the UFC uses you, gets everything they want out of you, and then kicks you out. When you start,
That's business.
and he says when you're out, they try to destroy your career. I don't know.
That seems
Well,
harsh.
Dana White wasn't
He's
very happy,
gonna-
by the way.
aye.
Dana was talking about that in the post pay-per-view press conference. He was very upset about that.
Right. I wonder if that was
Aye,
intended
aye,
in
he-
context. It seems out of character for Anderson Silva, that.
You wonder if there's a mistranslation there. Aye.
A quote there. One of the quotes was he says, when I was done in the UFC, everybody, especially Dana White, said, "Oh, Anderson can't fight anymore. Nobody in the same age group with Anderson can fight. It's terrible," and blah blah blah, and talking a lot of shit about me. Say, I felt disrespected because it doesn't matter what happened. Fight is fight. You can win, you can lose.
Right.
When you make a success of MMA, the one thing you need to do for your fighters is give respect. And that I feel no respect. But I don't care, because when I stop fighting, I'm going to stop fighting because I say I'm going to stop fighting.
Interesting.
Nobody can say for me I should stop. No one can say for me you need to stop now. Nobody. I'll stop when I say I'm done.
Right. So he's held a bit of contempt for Dana in the UFC because they were trying to usher him into retirement. They thought it was past it. Interesting.
Yep. What, hear another wee bit that you said?
Aye.
He said, so furthermore, this is a wee bit further down. I don't know exactly what the question was, but this is one of, he said that's the problem for people in this sport, especially UFC, because UFC doesn't respect the legacy that fighters have. They try to use you and kick you out. And when you're out, they try to destroy your career so you don't fight anywhere. This happened to a lot of fighters. People don't think about that. I had a good time in the UFC and bad times too. The bad time for me is the experience I have behind the scenes. But inside the cage, inside the fight, I do my best. It's the only time I have control. Outside, I don't have control.
I feel like if you're going to say that, you need
There's a
to
lot more.
back that up and give some examples. But at the same time, I mean, that man was basically my hero for a long ass time, so I kind of by default want to give him a pass on emphasis. So, I don't know. I'm pretty neutral on that. I mean, the UFC is notorious for just being very business minded with stuff. you can go fuck yourself if you don't sort of play by their rules, kind of thing. So, aye, I don't really know what to take away for that, to be honest.
Anderson's not happy. I can take that much away.
Anderson Silva is a bit butthurt by his alleged treatment at the hands of the UFC and comments potentially made by Dana White, I guess, at some point in time.
I guess so.
I mean, I know Dana has been known to, well, he's a very outspoken person. He says whatever the hell he thinks.
As always, aye.
And he has been known to be very vocal about when he thinks people should retire and stuff, which is probably no advisable in many cases. You know what I mean? He should probably be having closed door discussions with guys when he's thinking it's time for them to hang out the gloves. But that's what it is. That's what it is. It is what it is. Right. Before we hang up the gloves or the mics, let's very quickly look ahead to next week. So we have, now it's funny you mention Anderson Silva. Next week we have on May 14th, live and on pay-per-view from Dubai, we have Global Titans. Now, if you're wondering what Global Titans is, I don't have many details for you, but they are alleged to be the world's first NFT pay-per-view event. Couldn't really find out what that means, other than that when you buy tickets for it, you get an NFT. I think that's the crack.
I hate the future.
But I don't know. I'm so far out of the loop with this stuff, I don't really know. But anyway, the headline is the main event is Floyd Money Mayweather. Wait, is Money what he's gone by these days? Or is it like Old Man or something? What's his rig name these days? I don't know.
Floyd the Fanny Mayweather. No, it's not actually that.
We'll stick with Money. Floyd Money Mayweather versus Don Moore. Let's say he's like Don Danger Moore or something like that. I think it's Danger Moore. Don Moore. They are having a boxing exhibition in the main event, and the co-main is none other than Anderson Silva taking on a fella called Bruno Machado, a Brazilian MMA fighter or former MMA fighter, whatever he is. So a fellow Brazilian. They're having a boxing match of some description. Details on this whole thing are very sparse. I don't know how they're expecting to sell pay-per-views, because there's other than off the back of the names on the card, there's very little out there that I could find. So it is a thing that is happening. I will try and catch it just based on the main event and the co-main event, but I sure as F will not be paying for it, nor will I be purchasing any NFTs. Moving on. On May 13th, going back in time, still forward in time for us, but back in time for what I was talking about, we have Bellator 281. It is coming live from London. My brain just tried to shut it down there. I had to restart. It's coming for London, as I say. The headline bout is Michael Venom Page versus Logan Storley for the interim welterweight title. The champ, what it says, Amasov, you call him? I think it's Amasov. He is a
Russian fella.
Close. Ukrainian national, who's currently fighting in the war. So
that's right, of course. Fucked that, I don't know. Jesus, did I fuck that?
Oh, I went a bit light-headed there.
Sorry, Amasov, sorry.
I mean, to be fair, I could have given him the wrong name. I'm pretty sure it's Amasov.
Pure assumption.
But anyway.
That is Amasov, you're right, mate.
The co-main event was meant to be Douglas Lima versus Jason Jackson. However, that fight has been rescheduled for sometime in June, I think, for reasons. There's also Paul Semtex Daly's fighting Andrei Koreshkov. That's a retirement fight for Paul Daly. Although, to be fair, is it Andrei Koreshkov? I feel like Andrei Koreshkov might have pulled out of that fight and it's somebody else. Either way, Paul Daly's fighting and it's allegedly his retirement fight. And Lyoto Machida is taking on Fabian Edwards as well. So Lyoto Machida getting back in there for the first time in a wee while. Then back to May 14th, we have UFC Vegas 54. The main event is Jan Blachowicz versus Rakic, Alexander Rakic. So this is Jan Blachowicz getting back on the horse, obviously after losing his title to Glover Teixeira. Co-main event is Ryan Spann versus Ion Cutelaba. I don't know. Then we also have Davy Grant, Lewis Smoker, that's a fun fight. Kieran Chookagian, Amanda Ribas, fun fight. Frank Camacho, Miguel Torres, fun fight. Loads of fun fights. So that'll no doubt be a fun card, funnily enough. And on that funny note, I think we shall bid you adieu. Thank you if you have been for listening. Please continue to spread the word. Check out the website as always, the midweekmashedtattie.com, and send your friends and family members there as well to read a bit about us, to check out past episodes and to keep up with what we're doing. And see you again same time next week. I've been Mick, they've been Harvey and Paul. A goodbye.
Cheery bye, driver.
Bye, guys.
Bye, driver.
Ta-da.